Adam sputtered, his face a mask of fury and fear. I promised I wouldn't say anything. Jack remained calm, his voice sharp and steady. And I didn't. You two did all the talking yourselves. Megan and Adam scrambled, frantically typing messages and making panicked calls, but it was too late. The damage was done. Their affair, their lies, their betrayal, it was all out in the open now. Jack calmly sipped his water, watching as their world crumbled around them. Sarah, sitting beside him, placed a reassuring hand on his arm, a silent show of support. I think I've lost my appetite, Jack said, standing up. Enjoy your meal, and don't worry about the bill. It's on me. Consider it a parting gift for a decade of marriage. With that, Jack and Sarah left the restaurant, leaving Megan and Adam to face the wreckage of their own actions. The next morning, tension hung thick in the air at the resort. Word of the scandal had spread beyond the school, echoing through the local community. Megan and Adam were now pariahs, avoiding eye contact with other guests, flinching at every vibration of their phones. Jack, on the other hand, was calm and composed. He had spent the night fielding calls and messages from concerned friends and colleagues, explaining his side of the story with dignity. As Jack and Sarah enjoyed breakfast on her balcony, Megan approached. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. "How could you do this to me?" she demanded, her voice strained and hoarse. "You've ruined everything." Jack calmly set down his coffee cup, his gaze steady as it met hers. "I didn't ruin anything, Megan. You did that yourself when you decided to betray our marriage." Megan's face twisted in a mixture of anger and desperation. "You don't understand. I was unhappy. Adam made me feel alive again. You were always so focused on your work, your students. Don't you dare try to blame this on me," Jack interrupted, his calm demeanor starting to crack. "If you were unhappy, you should have talked to me. We could have worked on our marriage. Instead, you chose to lie, to cheat, and to make a fool out of me." Sarah, sensing the rising tension, stood up and placed a gentle hand on Jack's shoulder. "I think I'll give you two some privacy," she said softly, retreating into the room. Megan's eyes followed Sarah, and a spark of jealousy flared up. "Is that why you did this? You're sleeping with her, aren't you? This is all just revenge." Jack laughed, but the sound was hollow, devoid of humor. "You really don't get it, do you? Sarah's my friend. She's been here to support me through this nightmare you created. Unlike you, some people actually understand the concept of loyalty." Megan's shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of her. "What happens now, Jack? What are we going to do?" Jack raised an eyebrow, his voice cold and final. "We?" He shook his head. "There's no we anymore, Megan. You made your choice. Now you get to live with it." As if on cue, Adam appeared behind Megan, looking tired and anxious. "We need to talk," he said, his voice urgent. "The school board's calling an emergency meeting next week. They want us all there to explain what happened." Megan turned to Jack, her eyes pleading. "Jack, please, you have to help us if we lose our jobs." Jack stood up, his expression hardening. "I don't have to do anything. You both made your beds. Now you can lie in them." He paused, adding with a hint of sarcasm, "Though I guess you've been doing plenty of that already." Adam's face flushed with anger, and he took a step toward Jack, his fists clenched. "You smug bastard. You think you're so much better than us?" Jack didn't flinch. "I didn't cheat on my spouse. I didn't lie to everyone I know. So yes, Adam, I do think I'm better than you. And if you're smart, you'll back off right now." Something in Jack's tone made Adam hesitate. The physical intimidation that might have worked before seemed to bounce off Jack's newfound confidence. "This isn't over," Adam growled, turning to leave. "Oh, I think it is," Jack called after him. "By the way, I've already spoken to my lawyer. He'll be contacting both of you about the divorce proceedings." Megan gasped, her voice breaking. "Divorce? Jack, no. We can work this out. Please, just give me another chance." Jack shook his head, his voice resolute. "There are no more chances, Megan. You threw away 10 years of marriage for a fling. I deserve better than that. I deserve someone I can trust." Tears streamed down Megan's face as she made one last desperate plea. "What about our friends, our colleagues? They'll take sides. It'll be so messy." "I'm not worried," Jack replied calmly. "I've been nothing but honest and transparent throughout this whole ordeal. I think you'll find that honesty goes a long way." As if to underscore his point, Jack's phone buzzed with an incoming message. He glanced at it, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "That was Karen from the PTA," he said. "She's organizing a support rally for me. Apparently, quite a few parents appreciate how I've handled this situation. They're calling me a role model for integrity." Megan's face crumpled. This was all going so wrong. She had never imagined her affair would blow up like this. In her mind, she thought she would quietly end things with Adam, and Jack would never know. Now, her entire life was falling apart. "I think you should go," Jack said quietly. "Sarah and I have plans for the day," Jack said, his voice calm but firm. "And I'm sure you and Adam have a lot to discuss." Megan's shoulders slumped in defeat. She turned to leave but paused at the door, her tear-filled eyes looking back at Jack one last time. "I do love you, you know," she whispered. "I never meant to hurt you like this." Jack met her gaze, his expression a mix of pain, resolve, and a quiet finality. "If you loved me, Megan, you wouldn't have done this. Love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. You choose your partner every day, through the good times and the bad. You chose Adam. Now, you'll have to live with that choice." Megan's face crumpled as her last hope faded. With her shoulders shaking from sobs, she turned and walked out, the door closing softly behind her. Sarah emerged from the room, her face full of concern as she approached Jack. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Jack stood there for a moment, taking a deep breath as he looked out over the ocean, the view now tainted by everything that had transpired. "No," he admitted, his voice raw. "But I will be." Sarah squeezed his hand gently, offering silent support. "You handled that incredibly well, Jack. I'm proud of you." Jack managed a small smile, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Thanks, Sarah. I couldn't have done it without you." As they stood there, staring at the horizon, Jack felt a strange mixture of emotions. The pain was still there, sharp and persistent. Anger simmered beneath the surface. But there was also something else, a sense of freedom, of new possibilities. For the first time since discovering Megan's betrayal, Jack allowed himself to think about the future. It wouldn't be easy. There would be difficult days ahead, confrontations at the school board meeting, divorce proceedings, inevitable gossip and speculation. But Jack knew he would face it all with the same strength and integrity he had shown throughout this ordeal. Megan and Adam had made their choices. Now, it was time for Jack to make his own. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Jack felt a glimmer of hope. This wasn't the end. It was a new beginning. A week had passed since the explosive confrontation at the resort, but for the residents of Millbrook, it felt like an eternity. The small town, home to just 15,000 people, was buzzing with gossip. Conversations in grocery store aisles were filled with whispers, and debates over coffee at the local diner became heated. The scandal involving two of Millbrook High's teachers had spread like wildfire, leaving no one untouched. At the center of it all was Jack Wilson, the husband who had exposed his wife's affair in a dramatic live stream, a moment that had since become the stuff of local legend. As Jack drove to the emergency school board meeting, his mind raced through the events of the past week. The parking lot at the Millbrook School District office was packed, a clear sign of the meeting's importance. Jack spotted Megan's car and felt a twinge of something, a mix of anger, hurt, and maybe even a sliver of sadness. Taking a deep breath, he steeled himself for what was to come. Inside, the tension was palpable. The spacious boardroom felt cramped, extra chairs brought in to accommodate the crowd. Jack nodded politely to a few familiar faces as he made his way to his seat. His gaze fell on Megan and Adam, sitting as far apart as possible, both looking pale and drawn. The board president, a stern-faced woman named Eleanor Simmons, called the meeting to order. "We are here today," she began, her voice cutting through the murmurs, "to address the recent incident involving 3 of our staff members. We will hear from all parties involved before making our decision." Jack was called to speak first. As he stood, he could feel all eyes on him. This was his moment, not for revenge, but for truth. "Members of the board, fellow educators, members of the community," Jack began, his voice steady and clear. "I stand before you today not as a victim, but as someone who believes in the power of education and the responsibility we have to our students." He went on to detail his decade of service to Millbrook High, pulling out commendations, thank you notes from students, and evidence of the various extracurricular programs he had initiated and supported. "Teaching isn't just a job for me," Jack continued, his passion evident in every word. It's a calling. Every day, I strive to inspire my students, to show them the wonders of science and the importance of integrity. As Jack spoke, he noticed several of his current and former students in the audience. They nodded encouragingly, some even wiping away tears. I won't pretend that the events of the past week haven't been devastating on a personal level, Jack admitted, his voice catching slightly. But I've always taught my students that character is revealed in how we handle adversity. I chose to face this situation with honesty and dignity, not for my sake, but for theirs. He gestured to the students present. They're watching us. They're learning from us, not just in the classroom, but in how we conduct ourselves in all aspects of our lives. As Jack concluded his speech, a ripple of applause spread through the room. Eleanor Simmons had to call for order before inviting Megan to speak. Megan approached the podium, her usual confidence noticeably absent. She glanced at Jack, then quickly looked away, unable to meet his steady gaze. I know what I did was wrong, Megan began, her voice barely above a whisper. The microphone squealed, causing her to flinch. She took a moment to compose herself before continuing. I made a terrible mistake, but I'm an excellent teacher. My students love me, and my art program has brought recognition to the school. Surely my personal life shouldn't affect my professional standing. Her plea was met with stony silence. Jack could see the board members exchanging glances, their expressions unreadable. Adam was the last to speak. He approached the podium with a swagger that seemed out of place given the circumstances. Look, he said, leaning into the microphone. What happened between Megan and me was consensual. It was a mistake, sure, but it's not like we committed a crime. I've been nothing but an asset to this school since I arrived. The PE program has never been stronger. As Adam continued to downplay his role in the affair, Jack noticed Megan's expression darken. It was clear that Adam's attempt to distance himself from the situation was not sitting well with her. After the three had spoken, Eleanor Simmons called for a brief recess while the board deliberated. The tension in the room was unbearable as everyone waited for the decision. When the board members returned, their faces were grim. Eleanor cleared her throat before addressing the room. After careful consideration, the board has reached a decision, she announced. Mr. Wilson, in light of your exemplary record and the professionalism you've displayed throughout this difficult situation, we see no reason to take any action against you. You will retain your position at Millbrook High. A smattering of applause broke out, quickly silenced by Eleanor's raised hand. As for Mrs. Wilson and Mr. Reeves, she continued, her tone noticeably cooler, your actions have brought disrepute to this institution and violated the trust placed in you as educators. You are both placed on administrative leave, effective immediately, pending further investigation. It is likely that you will be transferred to different districts once this matter is fully resolved. The room erupted in a cacophony of voices. Megan burst into tears while Adam slammed his fist on the table in front of him. Jack, however, remained calm, accepting the decision with a quiet nod.